So we're going to talk for a few minutes about the Dynamic Roots program. This program teaches higher level reading and vocabulary skills through the study of prefixes, suffixes, root words, and word origins and word histories. You need a strong 4th grade reading level or above to use this program, and I'll often use it after I get done with the Morgan Dynamic Phonics programs. I'll go right into the Dynamic Roots programs. This is that morphology that we saw in the triangle, or morphological awareness. It's crucial for some students, and it's beneficial for many more. This program contains the accurate word origin definitions of over 2,000 words arranged into 62 Latin roots and 6 chapters of words from Greek origin. The words are defined by their morphemes, or their meaningful word parts, their origins, and their present-day definitions. Now, we know from research that good readers, when they see a word that they don't know, they look for morphemes first. ing, ed, re, pre. They look for those and for the meaning of the word first. We know that a lot of our students that have trouble learning to read don't look for morphemes at all, so it's something that they need to be taught. Word histories make words and their meanings more memorable. The word disaster means without stars. From an astrological point of view, if the stars are not in your favor, you might have a bad day. Auspicious means to look at birds, because there used to be these guys called augurs that would watch birds fly and foretell the future, and the kings and priests actually listened to these people. If you were in ancient Greece and you were not a public official, you were called an idiot. It didn't mean dumb back then, it just meant you weren't a public official. Now tell me what student is not going to remember that story. We're in the process of adding about 500, 600, 700 more words to this program that reflect the history of words, that reflect certain kind of notions and ideas that people have. We're going to have a section on gender bias, on class bias, on number bias, on right-handed bias, words from mythology, and words from religion. So in a way, when you study the history of words, you're studying history, because you're studying what these people were thinking about when they invented or coined these words 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. The word holiday used to be holy day, because the only days off that the working man got were religious holidays. So this is a great vocabulary building program. It's used in elementary, mid-school, high school, even college, and of course with adults, used in special ed, Title I, ESL, and in general ed classes also. It's good preparation for SATs, tests, for ACTs, for college entrance exams. Now, good readers also can benefit from this kind of work. What we know from research is that our students 30 years ago had much better vocabularies than they do now. And part of that is that even some good readers go home every night and watch TV and play video games, and their vocabulary does not expand because they're not reading. And that's why I have more and more of this program in general education classrooms. Now this is one of the lessons here, and this is from the teacher's manual, so you have all the definitions in here. And this is the root word to port, which means to carry. Now with younger students, I'll just tell them this means to carry, and I'm going to be working off this myself. And if you're a tutor, you can work on a piece of paper on the table. If you're a teacher, you can work on the blackboard or the overhead as you go through these words and piece them together, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. So first thing I'll ask is the students, do you know any words with port in them? And the wise guy in the back will always shout out, porta potty. And then we'll start going through these words and looking at the definitions of the different parts. So if we're looking for X, they have prefix charts with prefix meanings on them, and also for suffixes they have the same thing. So for the word export, we'll look up the word X, and we'll find out it means out. So you got carry out, out, carry, Chinese food, no, it's something carried out of a country. Then they look under M. M means into, something carried into a country. And then we have opportunity here, which has an interesting story. Opportunity means coming into port, which used to mean the wind was coming into port, which meant ships could come into port. Before we had planes, trains, and automobiles, that is what brought new people, new goods, and new opportunity to that village. So what happens here as we're, they're learning the root words, they're looking up the prefixes and suffixes more than once. A lot of times they're looking up prefixes and suffixes and they're learning those root words, is what happens is their vocabulary can expand by thousands and thousands of words because you're giving them these different word parts that have meanings, so they're going to find in other words all over the place as they learn more, as they read more and more sophisticated material. For instance, if your student knows that pre means before, then preheat, pregame, prenatal, pre-shrink, pre-wash, predict, and preview all make sense to them. If your students know that tele is a Greek combining form, which means from far away, telephone means sound from far away, television means seeing from far away, telegraph means writing from far away, telescope allows you to see something that's far away, and telepathy means feeling from far away. So it's, as you learn these parts, it expands your vocabulary even beyond this to many, many thousands of other words. Now, I was driving in my car the other day, and I heard somebody refer to one of our prominent politicians as a congenital liar. Now, I couldn't remember what congenital meant, but I remembered that gen comes from that root word where gene and genetics and genus and generate and germ come from, which has to do with birth or origin. And I know that con means together or with, so we're talking about, with birth. So basically what they were saying was this person was a born liar. And I could figure that out because I knew those word pieces. Also, this program is not cumulative, so you can go to any lesson in here and do that. If you're doing a lesson on a unit on the legislature, you can just go to the leg-lect Latin root and do that. And that's the one that has lecture and legal and illegal and legible and ineligible, all in that, and just do that one particular root word, one particular lesson. So after you go through these, and they're looking up the prefixes and suffixes as they go, and they're learning those. If you're one of the Greek lessons, they'll be looking in the Greek combining forms list, which is a different list than the other two. Then they'll go into their reading books, which they have the words and the words in context and sentences. And I also sell this as a reproducible, especially for larger classes so that they can run these off. But this gives them another context to understand these words. And then, of course, we have the yes and no questions, which is still another context for them to read and understand those words in. And then the thing that kind of ties this whole thing, brings the whole lesson together, is this matching page with the words and the definitions where they have to match the two. So the interesting thing about this is there's a couple different ways to do this, to access this information. If you know the meaning of export, and you can go over here and find the definition of export, then that's fine. If you don't know the definition of export, but you look up X, and it means out, then you can look over here for the word out and perhaps find the definition that way. But my students will have their prefix suffix list, they'll be looking up definitions, and they'll be trying to match these things. And it's a little bit hard for them, but it really kind of pulls the whole lesson together. If I'm working with a small group, I'll make sure everybody gets everything right before I go over them. With a bigger group, I'll do some of that, but I probably won't be able to do it all, but we'll make sure that at least they get them right when you go over them and correct them in the long run. We probably will be adding another kind of optional worksheet to this program within the next 6 months or so. I also suggest that in this program, it might be a good idea for you to use this for your spelling program too, if you're a teacher in a classroom, to use the words that you just read and understood and dissected and figured out and talked about for your spelling program. You can take 10 or 15 words from a particular lesson and make that your spelling program for that week. So this is a good higher level vocabulary and reading program which is necessary for some students, beneficial to many others, and a productive and fun way to learn vocabulary.